Welcome everybody to our roundtable discussion brought to you by KPMG. We're joined remotely by some incredible women in esports and technology, and we're going to be finding out today how exactly they got to this place within the industry, the challenges that they faced, and of course the opportunities that lay ahead for each and every one of them. So I think we should start off by speaking about career progression and kind of how you got to this point today. And Anna, I'm really interested to hear your particular story, because you said you worked with ESL, now going into your own role within your own company. So can you talk to me about how that happened for you, what the story was behind that?
I got my first job in the gaming industry by joining the very small at the time Muso. I think I was employee number 4 or 5, which has nothing to do with comms and everything to do with data, which wasn't my strongest suit. So I quickly moved on to a game pub. Then I think a lucky break that I had was landing a leadership position at ESL. How I've gotten here to the story mob is actually a really cool, funding story I like telling at interviews. My partner, Nicola, took me on a birthday trip to Iceland, 16. And because we both had to work during that time, we were just sitting there typing furiously on our laptops, doing our work stuff. And at some point, I don't remember which one of us said that, but at some point we said, well, why don't we just start our own thing? And we're so taken aback by this idea that we had to table it for 2 weeks and then circle back to it. But a few months later, the brand was born, investors were there, first clients were there, and fast forward almost 3 years, we are almost at the 3-year mark. Yeah. So very exciting, very new, first company, first time starting something from scratch, but I always love doing that. So that kind of fits the passion I have and the fire I have building stuff.
Awesome. So Emily, was that was it a similar story for you as well in terms of how you got into it and your role within Blast at the moment?
Actually, yeah, spookily similar, because it was a very happy accident that I ended up working here. Before this, I was a digital consultant for many years, and then I was a data analyst for an advertising agency. So I always came from a social media trends, audience research kind of background. And I'd heard about esports. I obviously heard that it was the industry to watch and that it was going to be booming. And then when a friend asked if I'd do some freelance work for Blast back in the day, I just said yes. And then eventually that became a full-time role. And I hadn't touched a video game since I was very young, playing Crash Bandicoot or like GoldenEye or something, like all of those games that you grow up with and then you just park to one side. So I had no idea what I was doing from an esports point of view. But I think that was the biggest trick, was that I came to this company that was so young. It was I think I was the 4th employee in London, and then obviously we had a huge contingent in Copenhagen. But because they were so passionate about the game, they needed fresh perspective. And I think that's the lucky route that I found into the world of esports.
Yeah, it's so weird, isn't it? Every time you speak to somebody from anybody really within esports, it's all these little things that just sort of line up and give you those opportunities. And I imagine for you, Vladdy, it was probably quite similar, going from being a player then to all those different roles. So how has your career kind of progressed over the years?
Oh, it will be a long story, to be honest. And I like esports because it gives you a lot of different opportunities. And esports doesn't have boards. You can meet some interesting people. I have friends from all the world, and it's amazing and inspired. I had started as a player. Then my first job in esports, it was journalist for some Russian website, and I went to Paris for ESWC. It was like a dream, for me. It's like...
Yeah, no, it's super interesting to hear, and I kind of want to open the floor as well to anybody who has any role models they particularly looked up to during their time in esports and technology. If there's anybody that anybody's particularly looked up to and has influenced their journey throughout their careers.
A role model can be within many areas, as long as it's someone who can help you shape your journey and who can kind of mentor you along the road. I was really lucky during my career having 2 strong mentors who also happened to be my superiors. But one was within sponsorship in traditional sport. The other one was within starting a new business, rolling out a brand strategy. And I think the key thing was they were the right fit for where I were at my journey at that time, and they really had enough sense of taking someone on a journey, and they had the desire to do so they could help me shape my way forward. And I don't think they didn't need to be in esports to do that, but they could help me go in the direction I wanted to go.
Yeah, 100%.
I think I have also a story about an amazing mentor that helped me move into technology as an industry. I was not actually working technology before I joined KPMG. And then basically this guy, my superior, was seeing me doing a lot of these data gathering manually, putting stuff into Excel. And then he was like, why don't you write a simple program that will help you do that? And I was like, okay, how do I do that? And he basically taught me the basics of Python, the language that I use today full-time as my job. And before then, I'd only tried programming as side projects when I was trying to make my own game in college. And it was so eye-opening that you don't actually have to be defined by your education, because my education is finance, it's completely different, or your previous work experience. If you really want to do something and someone has this confidence in you, it really helps. This guy was basically, you need to find what you want to do and just pursue it. And none of the excuses I came up with, he was not taking any of it.
I want to go back to you, Maja, with what you were saying about, your personal journey as well. And obviously we're coming here today to discuss, all being females within the esports and technology scene as well. So have there been any challenges for you that you faced whilst working in an industry that, typically is dominated by men? Have there been any sort of challenges or hurdles you've had to overcome through that?
So I've primarily been in traditional sports, and yes, that is very dominated by men and still is. I didn't meet, as I moved up the ranks, I stopped meeting women altogether at a higher management level, which I was really sad to see. I think my mentors, coming back to them, were really key. I found the people who weren't focused on whether I was male or female. They were just focused on where I wanted to go, my ambitions, and what I was able to do. I think in your day-to-day work, you will meet a bit of a boys' club, and that is a huge challenge. And I think the best way, to be honest, and not to take it up on too high a level, is that we need to start encourage girls at a very young age to get involved in this area and be curious about tech or esport or whatever it might be, and not be so concerned about whether it's a girl thing or a boy thing to do, because the more you've been exposed, the more you've been part of this as just part of your life, the less you and your surroundings will start to think about that you are a girl in a male's boy club or the other way around, and thereby also start to really encourage women to progress their career in these businesses. It's where we are at. It just is. We need to help lift each other up and get more representation at higher levels. I would say my biggest challenge was often that because it was a bit of a boys' club, you kind of have to force your way in there, and you need to sometimes shout twice as loud as everyone else to be heard. And I think that's probably a challenge many women can recognize in many businesses.
I just wanted to say that on the point about introducing women early, I completely agree. And I also think it's important to make these things fun for them. Actually, computer science is not a boring subject. It can be really fun because it's a tool that allows you to build things, and creating things is in general fun for kids. So I think we just need to come up with a better way to kind of teach these things early on, primary school, and then they start to naturally see it as a valid career path as they grow up and go into college.
Yeah, do you see any kind of key ways that, maybe other women who might be listening to this, do you see any key ways that they can start helping?
Yeah, I think actually pride has a heck of a lot to do with it. I read an incredible stat the other day, which obviously I can't remember, but it was something like a huge proportion of men will apply for jobs that they know they're not qualified for, but they just do it anyway because they expect to be at least given the interview so that they can talk themselves into the job. Whereas women are so much less likely to apply for the jobs they're not qualified for, well, not because they don't think they're qualified enough, but because they don't want to waste somebody's time in interviewing them for a role that they don't think they're qualified for. And I think actually we've just got to shake off all of that pride and kind of stop trying to be these perfect representations of women leaders as bosses or as kind of thought leaders in the industry, or a very few female faces in the industry, and just kind of say it's okay to go out for something that you don't think you're qualified for, waste somebody's time, have a conversation, ask someone on Twitter for advice, like risk that personal pride and that little bit of kind of pushback in order to actually get what you want. Because I think that's where you realize what you really do want out of this job and how far you're willing to push yourself to get it. So I think abandon all pride, and then we, as people already in this industry and working in tech, need to also show that we have no pride so that other women feel less intimidated about trying.
Yeah, so to round off, I just want to go around with you guys and just say if you had any advice that you'd give your younger self.
Focus what you have real impact on, especially when you're in a visible role. People will have opinion and they will have feedback, and they will think you're doing certain things right, and they will think you suck at certain things, right? But just focus on the things you want to grow in, the things you can control, not worrying about what will people say, so to speak, will basically create more time in the day and more mental space for you to solve the real problems, and focus on the things that are important. And the other thing, and I've learned this the hard way, don't rely just on your motivation. There will be days you're super motivated. There will be days you wake up and you're ready to take over the world. And there will be days you aren't, right? And they will alternate, and for different reasons. So rely more on your discipline and on your plan, the strategy you laid out for yourself, and the structure you have in place, than on motivation. Just keep at it.
Being part of this industry, and there's a lot of roles. You don't only have to be a content provider or streamer or esport athletes. And I think I'm very motivated today, and I would probably have reminded myself of that early on in my career if I could have, that, you go in there and grab your spot and be motivated by the fact, the more women that are placed in a lot of multitude of roles within the industry, the more the industry will also open up to actually giving women a fair chance to progress. Because if you only have males on all the positions, well then no fault of theirs, the perspective will be a male perspective. So I find that very motivating. Go in there, be part of the industry, and be part of opening it up to more diversity, because you can only do that by applying more perspectives. And then I think in general, I would have reminded myself, talk more to people about your insecurities, because you actually find out that, everyone else is insecure as well. It's not just you. And then you quicker learn to deal with failure, because you gotta fail. It would be weird otherwise, and you gotta be able to shake that off and move on. And I definitely think that's something that I wish I would have learned a little earlier.
No, I think for me, the one thing, like the scariest thing for me would have been if I had chosen not to pursue some of the opportunities I had because I was scared or because I wasn't confident in myself. And I think one thing I would have told myself is, don't be afraid to show others who you are, and don't be afraid to show what you want to achieve. And for every person that thinks you don't fit in a role or in a group, there are many others who will accept you and help you to grow in the direction you want. So put yourself out there.
I love that. Thank you so much, guys, for joining and having a few words to say. And hopefully we can inspire the future women of esports and technology to be encouraged to come into this industry, because it is an awesome industry and it's full of incredible women. So thank you so much for joining.